Greetings and Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to the National Council of Negro Women Incorporated's Emotional Health is Wealth webinar. My name is Kayla Allen, and I'm a part of NCNW Headquarters Communications team. Tonight is part one of our three-part series that will offer mindfulness tools for manifesting in 2022. If you have any technical questions during the webinar or during our Q&A portion, please type them in the question box. If you would like to raise your hand and speak, please click the hand icon located in your control panel or toolbar menu. All of our Emotional Health is Wealth webinars are located on our NCNW YouTube channel for you to rewatch and share. Lastly, there will be a brief survey sent after this webinar for you to kindly review. And now, please welcome NCNW Executive Director, Ms. Janice Mathis.
Thank you, Ms. Allen, and welcome everyone. Good evening. I'm so glad that you took time out of your busy day to join us for Emotional Health is Wealth. We are so excited about this series because we all know that the times that we're living through, there's voter suppression and there's COVID and there's, economic pressures. How do we absorb all of that without losing our balance, without losing the most important thing, which is our health? And so at NCNW, where our mission is to lead, advocate for, and most of all, empower our members, it's important that we address all the aspects of our health, not just our physical health, but emotional health as well. So we're delighted that you could join us tonight. We know that you're going to go away with something that you can use. That's what we aim for. We're very practical and pragmatic at NCNW. So we just welcome you, open up, engage in it, ask questions. We've got a wonderful presenter that you're going to hear more about in just a few minutes. And take the time to answer the poll questions. We really do use that information to see if we can't serve you even better. And of course, if you like what you experience, we invite you to visit www.ncnw.org and consider joining our organizations. We're 330 sections in 32 states. More than 2 million women are members of NCNW or affiliated with it. So this is an opportunity, a safe space where you can be exactly who you are. You don't have to be intimidated. There's no such thing as a bad question, no such thing as an inappropriate comment. So relax, enjoy, learn, share, and most of all, take very good care of yourselves. I greet you on behalf of our board, Dr. Daly, Dr. Janetta Cole, and our wonderful, imaginative, creative Director of Emotional Health is Wealth, Lindsay Morton. Lindsay, will you take it away?
Oh, thank you, Sister Mathis. I really appreciate you for your leadership and your kind words. I know that you're so busy, so it's always an honor to be in your presence and have you join us. So thank you, thank you. And good evening again to everyone who has joined us. Happy New Year. We are back. We were determined to make this program happen, and we're so excited. And so I have the pleasure of introducing a wonderful sister friend of mine. She is an expert, and I've had the pleasure of getting to know her and work with her for a little while now. And so please allow me to introduce you to Miss Neesa Johnson, who you should see on screen. I'm going to quickly share just a few highlights of her really dynamic and colorful bio, but I'm really going to invite her to talk a little more about herself when we get the conversation going. So you should quickly know that Miss Johnson, who you'll hear me call Neesa because we know each other, she is a dynamic and diverse expert in wellness, and she's had over 35 years of experience in a range of different areas. She's a practitioner in Asian body work techniques, yoga, hypnosis, and other spiritual counseling. She is a native New Orleanian where she resides right now. So if New Orleans is in the house and watching and listening to us, let us know in the chat. Give Neesa some love. But she also has graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Occupational Therapy with the focus in pediatrics and alternative medicine. So I am probably giving you the uber cliff notes of her background, but let's go ahead. Neesa, you're officially in the conversation, and I would love to just kick us off with having you, in your own words, tell our audience a little bit more about yourself. And thank you for joining us. So Neesa, who are you? What do you do?
Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction, Lindsay. I am so honored to be here, and thank you for graciously arranging this and for all of the outpouring that to get this started for the health and wealth of your membership. So I've been in the wellness business for all of my adult life. And I started out with children, like you mentioned, as an occupational therapist. And then I had the great joy when I was in college of having an anatomy and physiology professor, Dr. Chen, who decided that he wanted to give an elective called alternate healing. And in that elective, I took the class my sophomore year and learned how to do Tai Chi.
Oh, wow.
And that's where it all started for me. My journey with meditation. Tai Chi is a movement meditation form that's done in the Kung Fu school of martial arts. And then the next step back, the sitting meditation, is Qigong. So I also learned Qigong and the difference between the two. So I've been a practitioner of Qigong for a very long time. And then I moved out of pediatrics and had the great opportunities. All these opportunities always come your way. One of the people I worked with children, she's a nurse practitioner with prescriptive license that worked with adolescents with drug and alcohol issues.
Mm-hmm.
And she was in therapy, and a really good friend of mine, become very good friends, and had night terrors for years and years and years, and she was like 11 years older than me, and she came to our group therapy that we're doing with the kids and their families, and she looked completely transformed. And she, after a conversation we had where I was frustrated and said, you need to fire your therapist. This is not working. You've been in therapy for a year. Nothing's changing. You have night terrors. There's got to be a better way. She found this therapist that did hypnosis with her. She did 2 sessions, and she slept for the first time in 15 years.
Wow.
Midnight through the night without night terrors. And then she continued to do so, and it changed everything for her, just being able to get a full night of sleep. So I wonder how many people out here that are on this event listening in and watching what we're doing that don't sleep through the night. So that was my first introduction to hypnosis, and it was just miraculous. We were both enthralled, and so she found the school where her therapist had gotten trained and certified, and so we enrolled. And in 1991, I got my first certification of 3 in hypnosis, because there's different formats in schools. So, and then shortly after that, I also was invited to a talk by a group of Tibetan Buddhist monks, 3 Rinpoches that were in town in Berkeley. I lived in the San Francisco Bay Area at the time, and went to this talk, and it turned out to be more in the talk. And I ended up taking Buddhist vows in this meeting. So with that, I started a Vajrayana Buddhist meditation practice, which is basically sitting down and working on your breath, which is the first place to start. And then I mentioned to you in our conversation that I was a lifelong asthmatic that never grew out of it. And I had an emergency room visit. And in that visit, the doctor said, you don't breathe right. And he taught me this technique that we're going to do tonight that opened my airways and cleared my breath within moments. And so it just, all these different things came into play with understanding that breath is essential. And it's one of, we'll talk about this more later, but it's one of the things that we have some control over. That's an automatic reflex. It's actually a reflex that we have to keep living, but we have control over it for a reason. And it can switch us from a heightened aware state or arousal state to a relaxed arousal state. So that's how I got started and embarked on the whole process. I've been a 30-year meditator and offer in the New Orleans area prior to the pandemic, Qigong classes, which are breathing classes mainly for older women, for pain management and mobility. But I've been doing some type of movement, bodywork, breath classes for all of my career.
Wow, that's amazing. That I can't wait to dig in more on that, specifically around hypnosis, but just wanted to go back to that first introduction. Um, what was your experience? Do you remember how you felt when your professor sort of introduced you to a new technique? Were you nervous? I mean, did it take a while for you to catch on? What was it like starting out with mindfulness and meditation, in particular breath work?
Well, it was challenging because we were in a group. It was a new elective, so you had pre-med students, you had pre-PT students, pre-OT students, and sports medicine people. So we're all this different group of people, first of all, mixed in. And then I'm an asthmatic, and I'm an African American young woman at San Jose State University. We weren't the dominant ethnic group of people there. And so I was anxious a lot, and it was the first time away from home. So what I noticed, he started every class with meditation.
Mm.
And what I noticed immediately, because the very first class, before he took attendance, like you do in college, he did the meditation. Like he didn't care if you were on the roster. He just wanted to make sure everybody was present.
Wow.
So my first experience of it is it gave me the ability to notice what was going on in me, including the
Mm.
anxiety of being in a new class with all these different people. I actually didn't realize the social anxiety that I had. I didn't realize it. And that's the moment when I realized, we have the words for it now. We didn't call it social anxiety back then. I just was anxious.
Yeah.
And this was the first time I became aware of my breath and aware of why I was having a hard time emotionally, why I was stressed out. I was overwhelmed. And this class became a solace for me.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And I can testify to the power of the breath work. You've helped me in that area, and I'm so excited for our audience to learn more and explore that later on. So want to loop back to hypnosis. Candidly, I'll share when I first learned about your work and expertise in this area, I thought, oh my goodness, what is this about? Feels real woo-woo. Here we go.
Yeah.
But having experienced it and learned more from it, I, definitely it's changed my mind, and I've seen the benefits of it. So for those who are less familiar or unaware, can you talk about, what it means to be a hypnosis consultant and counselor? And you intentionally focus on sort of Afro hypnotism. So would love for you to kind of describe what you mean and are capturing when you describe Afro hypnotism in particular.
So I'm going to do something right now that's going to probably relate to everybody. This is a pendulum. Follow the ball back and forth. This is probably what most people think of when they think of hypnosis, right?
Yeah.
Looking back and forth. So the interesting thing about this is this is part of why it seems woo-woo, right? This pendulum. But what's going on is we now know there's evidence-based science that what's called your ocular pursuits, looking back and forth. I can just do it with following the finger back and forth. It creates a pattern with your eyes that causes you to flip from being in a heightened arousal state of fight, flight, or freeze
Mm.
to rest, digest, restore. There's this wonderful, if you want to Google him later, a researcher, Dr. Andrew Huberman, who does research at Stanford University, and it's in ophthalmology. It's all in the eyes. So everybody knows we have five senses, right? Your eyes, your ears, your smell. So your sight, your hearing, your smell, your taste, and then touch, right? So your eyes happen to be your most important sense. believe it or not.
Hmm.
And it's because your eyes actually have, in the back where the retina is, brain tissue. It's the only organ in the body besides the brain that has actual brain tissue in it. So what that means is that before what you see and what you perceive can travel along the optic nerve back to the brain, to the occipital area where that stuff is translated, before it gets back there, it instantly is translated in the eyes, whether you are in danger. So hypnosis works in this way of bringing you to an ultra relaxed state. There's another word, and you know this with look at the ball, follow the ball, trance. All trance is referring to is an oscillation of your brainwave patterns that puts you in a alpha or theta or delta wave length. It's an oscillation. So it's actually a wavelength of energy. All right. So it's not woo-woo. It's actually measurable. They put electrodes on your brain, and we know there's different types of brain waves. Beta is what's your active thinking, cognitive stuff all the time that's going on. So what we're trying to do is to convert you over to that overactive analyzing into a relaxed, clear state. And in the parasympathetic nervous system, which is that rest, digest, restore regulator, that's your soothing system. So what hypnosis does is it takes you from one arousal state to another to ultimately relax you, put you in a very relaxed state to almost sleeping. And that actually has to do with the brain waves that are responsible for creativity as well. So your mind becomes clear and you have more access to decision making. Hypnosis is getting you to a place where when things come at you and you're stressed, you can breathe in slowly, inhale slowly. This is the technique we're going to do to start with, so that you can have agency and clarity of mind to make choices about how you're responsive to your external environment and your internal environment versus reactive.
Awesome.
So Afrohypnotism is another part of your question, I'm sorry, is the way I came up with this idea is understanding that African Americans in particular, because of the experience of slavery and everything that means in our ancestry, and also with Jim Crow and everything that means in our ancestry, and desegregation, everything that means in our ancestry, the violence and the separation from your agency and being able to predict and have predictable outcomes to your life because your ancestors were changed into chattel and property and didn't have license over their lives to make decisions. So there's other research that shows something called epigenetics. We're actually in a time right now with the pandemic that research is finding that women that are pregnant, whether you get COVID or not, similar to people that have gone through World War I, their children that they conceived during this time in utero, the stress that's caused with the pandemic, a lot of those children are being born and they have developmental issues.
Wow.
And that's called epigenetics. So Afrohypnotism addresses the epigenetic imprints that we have from the trauma and the violence and the loss of agency that our people have experienced over 500 years.
Yeah. That word agency just stuck out to me. And, I think Hollywood has had us believe hypnosis is, you being in this trance and then, walking off into the woods somewhere, but really it is about, taking your control back, right? And so I think for you to clarify for us tonight that hypnosis leads to greater agency, I think is really important because there's probably a lot of misconception out there.
There's a lot of misconception. And it all started with Erickson and Jung. They started doing hypnosis and therapy and discovered this technique. But there are ancient societies, there are indigenous people that use trance to transform the development into different stages of life and participation in community. And it's done through dance and drumming, right? It's done through ceremony. It's done through prayer. Prayer is a kind of trance. Buddhist and chanting. So there's wisdom in indigenous cultures in spirituality that speak to the power of slowing down and going inward and using your breath to do so, so that you can actually make better decisions for yourself and for your community.
Great, great segue, because as you know, we're in a new year. And, New Year's, especially the last few New Years, have meant many different things. So would love to shift gears and talk about, what a new year means, in particular 2022. Neesa, what are you doing, if you don't mind sharing, to get ready for this new year? And what does a new year in general mean for you?
Well, that's interesting because I actually have I have some New Year's traditions. They all lead back to a meditative gratitude practice. So I start my day daily with a gratitude practice. For the year, I look back on the things that have occurred that have been medicine, that have caused change or soothing or movement, that have gotten rid of stagnation. And what I focus on is being grateful around, and when I say grateful, I mean appreciative, appreciation for the things that have moved in my life. And then I do another practice and I look at the year. But again, like I said, I do this daily. I also am grateful for the things that have been out of my reach that are not for me, the things that have been steered away from me that are not for me, and having a sense of understanding that, I'm in alignment and living in authenticity each and every day. And so the things that I need to happen in my life will happen. So that's my practice, is every day practicing some form of gratitude and then looking on the year, basically, focusing on the medicine of the year.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that you describe it as medicine versus like highs and lows or negative. We don't always like and or enjoy medicine, right? But we need it. And so I think that
Right.
word is really powerful when we describe our experiences, because they don't have to be so polarizing as we want them to be sometimes, using those descriptive words like a negative event or an amazing event. So great word there. And, for me, when we were talking about this conversation, I was so excited about like planning and getting ready for the new year and jumping ahead. And you were like, whoa, pause. We need to talk about clearing out and going back. And
Yeah.
so you kind of touched on that, but if you could just talk a little bit more about why it is so important to, reflect on that medicine and go back before you look forward. What does that actually do to set us up for greater success, and greater joy in a new year?
Well, I think it's an interesting thing to look at. I like, when I talk in metaphors a lot of the time, or give examples of things. So I think of it like you're cleaning your house. So you don't go through your house and basically throw everything out, right? You go through and you decide what things are working, things that are broken you get rid of, and then you start sweeping first, and then you do a mop. And then after you do that, you might dust, and then you might need to sweep again because, you might have gotten stuff in the dusting and mopping, or you vacuum, right? But it's like that. It's like what we think of a spring cleaning. So it's clearing out in your heart things that are still there that might actually kind of hold you back. And it's cleaning house. So when we go in and do the practice, it's going in and looking for the things that it will be very medicinal for you to release,
Yeah,
to sweep out of your house
that's great. That's great.
and to put out into the environment. So the other thing I feel very strongly influenced by, and some of the practices that I've seen, is that we get so out of alignment, especially in urban living, with nature. And there is, things are born, then things grow, and things, flourish, and then they get sustained, and then they start withering, dying back. And then that goes back into the earth
Hmm.
to provide fertilization for the earth, and then bugs get to have it that need it. And so there's this interconnectedness going in nature. So that's another piece of this, is the things that you're letting go of, then that medicine that you're letting go of, that might be something for someone else to have.
Hmm.
And you become then connected and interconnected into life itself. And basically, to use an Abrahamic term, blessing,
Hmm.
bestowing a blessing on someone. So, a Christian term, an Islamic term, you're blessing someone forward with something that doesn't work for you anymore, but could possibly work for someone else.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And that idea of community, I think, is going to be really important for me in this new year, not seeing myself, on an island, but recognizing I am connected, and there are opportunities, as you say, to share those blessings on with other folks in my community. So,
Yeah, we're doing that right now, right?
yeah,
We're doing that right
seriously,
now.
yeah.
And all the people that are on that I can't see, but I know they're there. And we're sharing information with folks that maybe have had isolation, maybe experienced fear in
Mhm.
this year from getting sick, or maybe their perspective on it is that it's not as big as everybody says it is, but now they're feeling the impact of, maybe they've made a decision not to get vaccinated and the impact of that because of society. So how do you navigate your choices to keep yourself in the health wealth paradigm?
Sure.
And yeah, so these are the ways that we can get to some of that information and be calm and have an inner peace about where we are in our bodies, to get that kind of anxiety out. There's natural fear. So part of our neurology is that we're supposed to be afraid of certain things, right?
Yeah.
We're wired this way so that, to coin a term, if a dinosaur is coming at you, you're not going to go, breathe. You're going to be like, but first the neurology has you freeze, and then you go, it's kind of hierarchical. If you freeze first, and then you experience the fright, and then you either stay and fight, depending on how close the thing is, or you get away.
Hmm.
We need those things. We absolutely need them. But if you're sitting in your house and you're on Zoom calls, you don't need the fight, flight, fright system so much, but it's active because you're anxious.
Yeah.
So your perception of what's going on is actually not accurate, right? And we are wired for certainty. So our brains are constantly working to find order and predictability so that we don't die. And so we're in a situation here globally where people are experiencing different levels of fear about an unknown vector, because we're finding out information of it. We don't know everything about it,
Hmm.
and it's always changing. So there's a realistic fear that people have, a worry, a stress about something unknown. That's how we're wired.
Amazing. So you kind of touched on this about the freeze moment, and I use the word triggered, right? So what happens if you're kind of going back, you're cleaning out, and you become triggered by, I don't know, like the sweater that you had on the day where everything, went awry? Like, how do you move from freeze and also move from like drifting too far back, right? Where you become
Yeah.
overwhelmed by all of the experiences, and then you're maybe a bit lost about how to navigate that.
So there's a piece of this cleaning out thing we're going to do today, and this is a piece of it, and it's about this whole use of the word trigger. So that word, there's a great doctor who does a lot of work with trauma, and his name is Dr. Gabor Mate. He's out of Vancouver, Canada, and I love how he talks about trauma. And he specifically does this great lecture on what a trigger is. That word is a weapons word. You think about trigger, what do you find triggers? You find triggers on guns, crossbows, right? It comes from weaponry. And so if you think about the image of a gun, it doesn't fire by itself, right?
Yeah.
You have to apply pressure to make the mechanism go off in order to trigger then whatever the projectile is, right? So when you do this work, when you do meditation, it helps you to become mindful of what's going on in the body so that, again, you can have license to see, oh, I'm feeling really sad because this reminds me of this, and my body's feeling like I'm back there again. That's a perceptual echo in the body, but it's not really happening right now. So it's actually not real. It's not real. It's a perception. So when you get distance from those perceptions, when you can see them, that identity, I like to call them trauma identities. Dr. Mate calls it that too. There's a couple of great hypnotists and meditators that call it that. So you have these identities that you then step into that identity. Is that authentic? Not really, because the past is the past. If you're living in the past and not the future, then you're not living your life right now. That's a past experience. It's past time. It's not real time right now. So it's good to get into the mindfulness training so you stay present in the moment right now. You do a quick breath. You can do the breathing anytime, anywhere. It's free. I call it unconditional love, because you get from the air, from the plants that are giving off oxygen that we take in and then we give them back. It's that interconnectedness. It's free love. It's unconditional love, the very air that you breathe. And you take that love in your body, and then it exchanges in your blood cells, goes through your heart, throughout your veins, and delivers nutrition to the body, to the cells of the body. That right there is bringing you presence into the very moment of what it means to be alive, and to align yourself to the present and away from the trauma identity. Doesn't mean it wasn't real. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but you change your perspective on the significance of it. That's how we're finding hypnosis is working for PTSD, which is about you're triggered about things, right? And it just comes on you. So it's highly successful for PTSD because it moves you away from, you are not the abused, you're not a survivor, you are an individual who has gone through experiencing violence, and that is in your experience, but that doesn't define you. So, one of the things about saying, trigger warnings on the screen, I think it's kind of treating people in a way to not actually help them to find ways to self-soothe, right? It's
just take their power, take your agency, right? Take your power back.
It's taking your agency away. It's counterintuitive. It's taking the agency away by everything having, like, well, how can everything have a trigger warning? Well, that just tells you there are things that can be stressful for everybody in life. So you
Yeah.
got to walk on eggshells everywhere you go. That's not living. How is it that African Americans can make it this long after going through slavery? We didn't do it by being triggered by everything. That's not
Fact.
resiliency.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not resiliency.
Yeah. Ooh, that was a lot. Very helpful for me. I hope for our audience as well. I have one more question, and then I really want to jump into the practice so that we have ample time for that and also Q&A. So you mentioned stress, and I know that you work with a range of folks, but in particular, professional Black women who are high performing, who are, achievers in every way, but also very, very much stressed, right? Stressed out
Yeah,
individuals. So,
yeah.
how have the last few years, in your view, sort of impacted Black women? And what more should we be doing as we think about stepping forward into this new year?
Well, I think it's really important for people to get that health is wealth. Um, the Yoruba people who have survived a whole myriad of things in Nigeria and their spiritual practice, the most important blessing you can receive is health.
Hmm.
It's the only thing. And if you look at Buddhist practices, if you look at, people who say, have you eaten today? Like instead of greeting you with how are you, they ask you in their languages, have you eaten today? It's a baseline thing of helping you to be healthy, right?
Mhm.
So what I've noticed in working with, Black women is that, and women in general, especially mothers, as I work with mothers for years, like the bulk of my work in 30 years has been with moms. And that's why I started this, is because I found that, yeah, I was great in helping the kids, but if I could help bolster up these moms so that they can go out and, conquer the world for their children, that was far better, because not just me working with the one kid for, an hour a week, the mom would constantly have support if I could switch over to working with adults. And that's why I did it. So I think it's really important to understand that moving forward, it needs to not come down to a selfish, like, I have to have good boundaries because there's toxic people out there. Because what you're doing is you're projecting some stuff that may not be necessarily true. Taking care of yourself means being present for yourself, noticing when you have stress,
Mm.
noticing when you're not breathing well, noticing when you're moving too fast, noticing when you're tired. That's what mindfulness means. It means, it comes from a word that is consciousness, and consciousness means noticing. That's what the Sanskrit word actually means. And that's what this mindfulness movement that's going on, it comes from the understanding that you have to notice things first in order to shift and change. You cannot be wise unless you know. So that's what we need to make pledges with ourselves about, is noticing when we feel discomfort, noticing when we are agitated, noticing it, and not looking outside first, look inside first. And what I mean is not taking the blame, but saying, this is how I feel. My heart rate is racing. I'm not breathing very well. Notice your physicality. Self-soothe with a few techniques, and then give yourself agency to then make decisions that are more balanced for yourself and your environment.
Love it. Love it. And again, you've taught me that. It's been so helpful. I had a moment, 24 hours ago where I just had to, check in, breathe, and then just see where I was at. So I am so excited to have folks experience more of you from a meditative standpoint. I want to pause our discussion here. We're elated to have you back for 2 more series events. So we're going to get to learn more about you. But is there anything we should know or plan to think about as we shift into our practice moment? And then, after you give those comments, we're going to move right into the practice.
So this requires that you just find a quiet place to sit, that you won't be interrupted, and that all of this practice is done in a sitting posture, not lying down. Because what we found in science and doing the research on this is that if you're active in this, then you can transfer that skill for when I'm talking about doing things like notice you're anxious and you're moving around. If you can only do this lying down, or you can only do this before you go to sleep, it's harder to transfer the skill for self-soothing. So everybody should be seated comfortably, but seated and without interruption.
Sounds good. All right, well, Neesa, the floor and the stage is all yours. I'm going to turn my camera off and get ready to practice with our audience, and we'll come back.
Do we do a little bathroom break now, or for people to get situated? Is that what we're doing, or we're just going to go right into it?
We can take a minute, and you can set us up. I'm gonna just hand it over to you. So however you want to guide us,
Okay.
It's all yours.
All right. All right, everyone. So the first thing we're going to do is give you a moment to make sure you're comfortable. I'm seated right now on my couch, and I have a pillow behind me right here for the small of my back, and I can settle in because I relax in with you as well. As we get finished with each and every practice, you're going to hear this. And that means take a few minutes to come back and open your eyes and be more present. And I'm going to do 3 of them, so it gives you a little time. Sometimes some folks take a little longer than others. All right? So let's do that. So everybody get comfortable. If you have any restrictive clothing, loosen up your pants, get comfortable, and just sink in. All right? So the first thing I want you to do is notice as you're breathing how deep your breath is. If it's shallow, if you're breathing just up here in your upper chest, just notice. If you want to put your hand over your heart, your chest, and then the other hand, if you want to put it like right here and here, and just feel your breath. Just feeling your body, and just take notice, become aware of right now, just become aware of the movement that occurs when you inhale and when you exhale. Notice with your hand below what your stomach is doing. And if you're closing your eyes, that's just fine to do that. Just relax. Now think about when you have seen a little child around 2 years old breathing. They breathe with their whole torso. So they breathe with their chest, the front, and they breathe in their upper back, and they actually move their belly. In Western culture, we're taught to walk around, especially women, holding in your stomach. So I want you to relax your stomach. Just let your stomach do what it's gonna do. So I want you to imagine as you take a breath in, and if you can't imagine it, when you breathe in, your belly is a balloon that you're filling up with air. and hold your breath for a minute. And now exhale and deflate that balloon in your belly and hold it for a minute. And inhale. And hold that breath. And now exhale, deflate the balloon, and suspend the breath. Don't take another breath. Again, inhale, fill up the balloon, and your chest is the last thing. And hold the breath. And slowly exhale, deflate that balloon, and suspend the breath. And now just place your arms down in your lap and just notice in your body what that feels like. Notice any changes. Maybe you feel a little lightheaded. Perhaps you notice that there's some tension and restriction in your body. So what we just did was called square or box breathing. So this is one of these science-based breath soothing activities you can do. So this breath is actually a breath that's taught to Navy SEALs. This is the breath that the ER doctor taught me to do when I was having an asthma attack in my 20s. That brought my vital capacity, is what it's called. So my ability to bring air in my lungs, it actually increased the capacity by doing this breath. You also know if people sing, when they sing, they don't sing from their throat, they don't sing from their chest, they actually sing from their belly. And there's a reason for this, because your diaphragm, which is the muscle of respiration, it rests right up under the lungs like a little, I like to call it an umbrella. So when you inhale, the umbrella's like this. When you exhale, the umbrella opens up. So there's this, the muscle contracts and relaxes, contracts and relaxes. And that's part of what drives the breath. Well, this moving your belly and being aware of that helps that muscle to work better. It brings your awareness and your attention down to doing diaphragmatic breathing, or a Buddha breath is what I sometimes call it in my Qigong classes. It's a Buddha belly, a Buddha breath. So let's do it one more time. There was this great program that was, it was a documentary I watched about a doctor doing some work with children that had a hard time self-regulating, and they use this breath on little kids, and they'd have them lie down on their back, and they would pick their favorite object. And this one little boy they were following picked up a stone that had carved in it peace, and he put the stone right here on his solar plexus and lay down with his hands just anywhere he wanted them to go. And his job was to inhale and lift the peace stone up, and then exhale and let the peace sink into him. And it was just this lovely metaphor of using that diaphragmatic square or box breathing technique. We know it reduces anxiety immediately. Navy SEALs use this when they're getting ready to do their recon and all these crazy missions that they do. They use that breath so they don't get over anxious and excited, and keep themselves calm so they can make decisions, better decisions, when they are dealing with high stress events. And they train them to do this. So let's do it one more time. We're getting ready to start. Again, we're going to do box, or you see it as square breathing in some places. So settle in. And what I'm doing is I'm going to be counting for a very long 4-count breath. You can do 6 if you like, but for those who need to do a little shorter breath, that's fine. So exhale all the air in your body, hand over your heart, hand over the top part of your belly, and exhale. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, and suspend. 2, 3, 4, and inhale. 2, 3, 4, hold. 2, 3, 4, exhale. 2, 3, 4, hold. 2, 3, 2 more times. Inhale. 2, 3, 4, hold. 2, 3, 4, exhale. 2, 3, 4, hold. 2, 3, 4. Last time. Inhale. 2, 3, 4, hold. 2, 3, 4, exhale. 2, 3, 4, and hold. 2, 3, 4, and breathe naturally. So those of you that had your eyes open, I made a square to show you that's what the square or the box means. Creating a square pattern with the inhale, holding, exhale, holding pattern. This breath is really good for self-regulation through anxiety. I've worked with many clients that come to me saying, I am anxious. I'm an anxious person. And we do some education on not owning that identity, first of all, of being anxious. So it's not part and parcel of who they think they are or who they really are. Again, a perceptual shift. And then the next thing we do is teach the breathing. I have about 80% of my clients that come to me for anxiety. They have anxiety no longer after one session, just by doing this particular breath and then a few other techniques. So it's very effective. And this is the one technique that Lindsay referred to. That's really important. Right, just notice how you feel in your body. Sometimes if you are taking medication and you start taking in more breath, it might make you feel a little dizzy. If you have conditions where you have low blood pressure, this type of breath might drive your blood pressure down a little bit. So just be aware of that if you are someone that has those issues, that you might want to regulate that by doing not as long as a breath. So the optimal is to get to 6 count. Inhale, 6 count. Holding, 6 count. Exhaling, 6 count. Holding. That's the ultimate, because that gets you to really stop the fight, flight, fright reaction. Okay, hope everyone's feeling calm and relaxed from that. So the next thing that we need to address here is that there's different kinds of breaths for different things. If you want to put yourself in a heightened arousal state, then breaths like or that puts you in a heightened state. And you probably recognize that breath, especially the last one. When you notice somebody's mad, especially again, going to children, because they're not trying to impress anybody. They're not, trying to not stop doing something that might look weird. They're just doing what's natural. And when kids get upset, it's right? It's that kind of breath. It's ramping up the system to be more scared, more upset, more frightened. So the same thing is true for adults. If we're walking around breathing in that kind of hyperpanting breath, it's going to bring your system up into a more heightened arousal state of freeze, fight, flight. All right. And what we're trying to do is to bring you into health and balance. So one of the interesting things that happens when you do the slow breaths, when you move into the parasympathetic part of the neurological system of rest, digest, restore, this is when your immune system kicks in and immunity is strengthened. So here's another reason to have a good breathing practice, is it actually enhances your immune system. And in the time that we're in right now, that is certainly good news, right? Okay, so let's take a 1 minute stretch. If people can get up and stretch around a little bit before we get into the meat of this meditation. We're going to stay in this one for a little longer. This will be at least a half an hour part of the session. So stretch, move around. If you need to go to the restroom, let's give everybody, let's do 5 minutes and then come back and we will continue with the practice. But this one is going to require you to sit for a little while. So everybody take about a 5-minute break.
We do have an inhale and exhale question for you in the meantime.
Okay, that's fine.
They would like to know, should we inhale and exhale through our nose or mouth or both?
Say that again.
They would like to know, should we inhale and exhale through our nose or mouth or both?
During the box breathing?
I believe so, yes.
Through the nose.
Through the nose, okay.
Through the nose. So we're going to take a 2-minute break. So, yeah. Looking at the time here, we don't have as much time as I thought. If there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
I'm going to administer the first poll to see if everyone is ready.
Okay, thank you.
So it looks like 100% of our guests
Okay.
are ready.
All right, cool. All right, everyone. So go ahead and settle in. We're gonna it's brought to my attention about the time. So this is going to be 10 minutes. All right. So we did the first practice with the box breathing, which is breathing through your nose with that inhale, hold, exhale, hold. So go ahead and take a couple of breaths and regulate to get comfortable. Everybody look up at the ceiling and take a nice deep breath in through your nose. And the rest of this time is going to be all nose breathing. And then exhale slowly through your nose. Keep looking at the ceiling. And inhale nice and slow. And exhale slowly through the nose, even slower than the inhale. And now close your eyes. Sink further into where you're sitting. And notice how your body feels. Notice any place in your body that you feel tension, restriction, constriction, heaviness, soreness, fatigue. And as you breathe in, follow that breath in through your nose. Notice the temperature of that breath coming in from outside. Is there coolness, dryness? Is there heat? Exhale slowly, each and every time through your nose. Inhale and follow the breath. Notice the breath as it passes through your nose, the sensation down in your windpipe. And notice as it goes into your lungs as they fill up with the air. A little pause. And exhale slowly. And notice the change in the breath when it exits out of your nose. Inhale again, slowly. Sink into that feeling. Keep breathing at this slow, rhythmic pattern and notice as you breathe in, allow any stress or tension or even thoughts, worries, lists, plans, what you have to do, what you didn't do. Let that go out with the breath. Liberate, clear out, and allow those feelings or thoughts to go out on the breath. And each and every time you're able to do that, it leaves more room for the nourishing, nutritive air to come in and occupy the space where that stress used to reside. Exhale out. Sometimes we can imagine in our mind's eyes through pictures. You imagine when you breathe that air in, you're literally sweeping out all of those experiences that cause you worry or sadness or grief. Sweep them out on the exhale into the external environment. And inhale the nourishing breath that will travel in your body and deliver the life-giving force identified primarily as oxygen to each and every cell of your body. Now imagine yourself sinking down even deeper into the body and find other places where you may have discomfort below the rib cage, maybe into your belly, and allow that space to be cleared with your exhalation of any heaviness or pain, worry. Breathing in deeply. Just notice thoughts, distractions, pain, stress. Just notice it and allow that to be carried out on the breath. Breathing deeply. And if you have a color that's really pleasing to you, color that represents something that brings you joy. And if you like a lot of different colors, just the first one that comes to mind, imagine that you're inhaling that color into your body, into your chest, and that color is filling up the space where your lungs and your heart occupy in your body. That beautiful, joyous color is filling up that space until it's full of that beautiful, comforting, pleasant color. Allow it to then expand out into your belly, as if the color is now moving along your bloodstream. Allow it to spread out through your whole body. And every exhalation is removing, just like your exhalation does, the waste products, the things your body cannot use, and things outside can make use of, like your exhaled air. Breathe in that color. Let it fill your whole body, carried along in your blood cells, every cell in your body. Notice places maybe that have worry or maybe thoughts that are distracting. Just notice them. Continue to breathe that color in. It truly is all right if other thoughts and feelings are occupying the space as you breathe slowly. Know that your ability to slow your breath down, to take time for yourself, creates more space for your body to restore itself, for the wisdom that's in the body through breath itself. Allow that color to reach into your head. And some people find they have the experience of the color as if you're sweating coming out through the pores, radiating out of the ears, the fingertips, whatever you may experience. Let the body be filled with your beautiful color. Breathing slowly through the nose. And notice if there's any changes that you're experiencing. Notice if you feel the same, if you feel calmer, if you feel more peaceful. Notice if you feel a little more distracted. It's okay. Just the practice is about becoming aware. Things may come up that you didn't realize have been on your mind. And breathe into that. And coat it with that color of beauty and joy. And now, think of 3 things or places or people or events that you're grateful for, that you appreciate fully. Notice in your body where you feel the appreciation. When you think of that person or that thing or that place or that event. Notice in your body where appreciation seems to generate. Breathing deeply. Just notice what it feels like to appreciate fully and thoroughly where you are right now in this moment. And now take the time to come back in the room, eyes open, relaxed, and centered.
Wow, Thank you, Neesa, for that intro. I know our time was limited tonight, but we have 2 more wonderful opportunities with you to go deeper and really develop our skills in this area. We're going to allow for audience questions, but we're going to start with 2 poll questions just to check in with everyone and make sure folks are feeling well, and so that we can get a gauge on how that went for you. So Miss Allen, if you don't mind administering those 2 poll questions and then going ahead and giving us what our audience has to say and share with us tonight.
No problem. So the first poll question, we are launching now. Do you feel different from when we started the event? We're going to give them 30 seconds. All right. Are you all able to see the results on your end?
Yes,
Wow,
All
I
right.
can see them 100%. Wow.
it's lovely.
And now we have our second poll question, or third one. Sorry. Wait, it's still in a trance.
It happens.
Are you experiencing any discomfort? And we will give you all 30 seconds.
All right, so most of us are feeling well. Neesa, I believe you can see the results.
Yes.
And so I don't know if you want to talk to anyone who may be experiencing discomfort or dis-ease and what they may want to do just to take care of themselves following the event tonight.
Yeah, sometimes people feel disease. So let's just start with the physical parts. I think I mentioned before about if you have low blood pressure, you may feel lightheaded, you may feel the breath might be too long that you're taking, so you might want to shorten your breath. Sometimes we have, and all meditators complain about this, is sitting for a long time sometimes brings discomfort. So if you have low back problems, it may be just a situation where you need to position yourself so that you feel more comfortable. So sometimes making sure you prop yourself up with pillows, having your hips at a 90-degree angle. If you find you can't sit for long, then go ahead and get into a comfortable position to make it a little bit easier. If you feel more anxious, sometimes, occasionally it's rare, but if it happens that you feel more anxious, then that is usually an indicator to me that you're thinking too much. So it's someone that's in their head. So I would result back to the square or box breathing. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, suspend for 4. And that'll get you out of the anxious feeling that you might be experiencing. Other kinds of discomforts could be there's an interesting phenomenon that there's some people that can't visualize. And it's not to do with a neurological problem. It's actually you think in words. So that's if you're uncomfortable because you couldn't see anything, you couldn't get to a color, you're just that individual. And it would make a lot of sense if you thought of the word of the color. So let's say my color is green. And if I didn't visualize, then I would think of the word green and see that on myself, that concept of like putting clothes on, that green is covering you. So it just may be a need of different instruction for the individuals who actually cannot visualize. Again, it's not a dysfunction you have. We're not all the same. It's one of the beauty of the diversity of us being human beings is you may not be able to do that. And then if you have discomfort because maybe your nose is stuffy, maybe you are not breathing well in the first place, it's hard to meditate when you have a cold. It's hard to meditate when you have a migraine. It's hard to meditate when you have some stuff, although hypnosis works really well individually for migraines. So we just might need more individual work also, or just work to the level of your comfort.
Yeah. And so for anyone who is moved to work with you individually following tonight, how can they reach you?
They can reach me with my website, Hypnosis New Orleans. It'd be great if you go on the website, Hypnosis New Orleans, you'll be able to contact me. And it would be great for you to contact me through there and let me know you were here this evening. And then what I do is I set up a lanyap consultation. It's a word we use down here. It means a little something extra.
Such a
And
great word.
yeah, it's a great word. And so we do a lanyap session, which means I don't charge you for it. And it's for us to see what it is that you would like to do, what are the things you would like to work on, and if my services can actually assist you with that.
Great. And so for anyone, particularly those who may be having some discomfort or questions, I would implore you to really reach out and take advantage of the
Yeah.
lanyap session. Neesa's great with answering questions and such a friendly person. So don't feel shy about reaching out. I want to quickly move to any questions. So what is our audience saying? I'm curious.
Well, first, what is the contact information where our audience can reach you? That I could put in the chat.
Hypnosisneworleans.com.
All righty. And then someone would like to know, is there a maximum number of times each day when you should meditate? Can you meditate too long or too often?
Ooh.
So that's a great question. So considering that I've had a meditative practice for 30 years, I've done up to 2 hours at a time and gone on retreats where you meditate all day long and you do little breaks in between. So mostly no, but you have to work up to that. The science says that you need that 15 minutes a day is most effective. So not 10 minutes, not 5 minutes, not 30 even. It's 15 minutes is all you really need to make that shift away from having being able to have access to self-regulating. So 15 minutes. There are some conditions that may be difficult to sit for a long time. We covered it, people that are having discomfort. If you have physical issues, it may be something that we'd have to adapt. But for the most part, 15 minutes a day in the morning or in the daytime, not before you go to sleep. Again, it's about being active and mindful. So in the moment, present.
And we have a comment. One person said, when they started the breathing as an asthmatic, I felt tight in my chest. I realized I am a shallow breather. As I did the breathing from my belly, inhale and exhale, and then later being conscious of my nasal breathing, I feel full lung intake of air and very relaxed. My lower back is now so loose and relaxed.
That makes me so happy. Being an asthmatic, it's just an amazing thing to have that. So I am so honored to give you this simple technique so that you can have liberation in your life. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
And that is our last question. Miss Morton, you're on mute.
Yeah.
I was over here clapping and going on. Well, I just wanted to kind of recap on the homework that I heard us, and I use homework lightly, but between now and next month, Neesa, it sounds like we really should be thinking about last year,
Yeah.
the medicine that was produced, and when we get in those moments where it feels a little tight or sticky, it's then where we really want to focus on the breath techniques that we learned today, really
Right.
slowing ourselves down, being present. But then, on a daily basis in the morning, we need to be, meditating, being still, and using these techniques. So, is there any other sort of homework or things we should be looking to do and practice between now and next month when we come back?
The only other thing I would suggest you do is get out and walk.
Mm.
One of the things that Dr. Andrew Huberman, and you can go look at his website. That's one of the things I suggest you do is look at he has when he first started doing YouTube videos, they were like 15 minutes long. Now they're like 2 hours. But if you dig, you can find the short ones. And one of the things he says that the science is showing, besides the 15 minutes a day of breath, it's being in awe. So if you get outside in nature and be in awe of the beauty of creation, it actually helps with self-regulation as well.
That is such confirmation. I read something earlier today that was saying that we're not getting outside enough, getting that vitamin D, and supplementation really isn't doing enough to cover
No,
us. So I am
no.
also challenging myself to get out of the house more, be outside, be in the sun, soak it up, particularly in the winter, because you forget about the need to be outside and have that fresh air. So thank you for that encouragement. Nisa, I'm looking forward to coming back with you and going deeper and also hearing from our audience. Reach out to us, let us know how this experience is going for you. And also, if you have any questions or thoughts or ideas for our next 2 sessions, we'd love to hear from you. So,
Yes.
good night. Happy New Year. Be well. And thanks for participating. Yes. And don't forget to follow NCNW on Facebook, social media platforms like Instagram and Twitter. Just follow along with all the wonderful work that is happening, not just this campaign. This is an amazing legacy institution, and I'm really proud and honored to be a part of it with this campaign. So thank you all and good night.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.